Years ago, the town of Dry Wells had prospered thanks to its gold mines, becoming a center of affluence. The cobblestone streets of the town echoed with the laughter of gold miners, and the taverns were filled with merriment throughout the night. However, this prosperity brought with it a dark event that would soon change the fate of the town. On an autumn night, while the moon hid behind dark clouds, a dusty horse-drawn carriage appeared on a narrow road outside the town. Inside the carriage were 5 foreign men, their faces concealed by black hats and cloaks. They entered the town silently. No one knew their names or where they came from, but their intentions were clear: gold. The town's wealth had drawn these mysterious men here. They moved through the town streets unnoticed and eventually stopped in front of the building housing the town's richest mining depot. Forcing open the building's door, they engaged in a brutal conflict with a few miners who were inside, showing no hesitation. The smell of blood and gunpowder in the room revealed the foreigners' ruthlessness. They coldly killed each miner, casting their bodies aside as they focused solely on the gleaming gold. The dazzling piles of gold fueled their greed. Without leaving any behind, they began loading the gold into sacks and onto carriages. Meanwhile, the women and children of the town, having heard of the horrific raid, sought refuge in an old well located in the center of town. As the women trembled in fear in the depths of the well, they could hear the footsteps of the foreigners outside. One woman covered the mouth of the small child she was hiding with her, holding her breath to keep them silent. As the foreigners searched for the last remaining gold, one of them noticed a disturbance in the well. He approached the well slowly, his eyes fixed on the darkness, and noticed the women hiding in the depths. An ominous smile spread across his lips. He signaled to the others and moved toward the well. As the women, huddled against the cold stones of the well, waited in despair, hearing the footsteps of death drawing nearer, the foreigners lowered a rope ladder into the well. They descended one by one. The footsteps echoing in the well were terrifying enough to rip the women's hearts from their chests. In the dim darkness of the well, they advanced with their daggers and guns. The women, in a last-ditch effort to save their lives, offered some of the gold to the foreigners, but this only hastened their end. The foreigners took the gold along with the lives of the women and children. The blood spilled onto the stone floor of the well mixed with the gold, cursing it. The blood that splattered onto the gold condemned it forever. The final screams of the women and children echoed from the walls of the well, casting a dark shadow over the town. As the foreigners gathered the blood-soaked gold, a deathly silence fell over the town. Only the whispers of the dead and a cursed hum rising from the well remained in Dry Wells. This inexplicable curse transformed the town into an eternally abandoned ghost town. Samuel rode slowly across the desolate terrain, where the harsh wind blew sand across the barren landscape. The seemingly endless stretch of land offered no hope that his weary steps would lead him anywhere. Even his footprints were instantly erased by the wind, leaving no trace behind. Yet, Samuel moved forward as if he knew his way. He had been a solitary traveler for years, always feeling as if he were followed by the ghosts of the past with every step. At last, the silhouette of a town appeared in the distance, catching Samuel's attention. The town, nestled among clouds of dust and sand, seemed frozen in time, a place no one had visited for centuries. Samuel directed his horse towards the town's crumbling entrance. Once a prosperous settlement, the few wooden buildings now lay in ruins, ravaged by wind and time. Doors were rotting, windows shattered, and the streets were empty and silent. The abandoned town stirred a strange sense of unease in Samuel, but he did not turn back. Dismounting, Samuel began to walk down the town's main street. With every step, the creaking of the wooden floors disrupted the deathly silence. He looked around. Aside from an old well in the town square and a few dilapidated buildings, there was nothing to see. But something was wrong. Samuel could feel it. The town seemed not merely abandoned, but under the rule of a lurking, sinister danger. When he reached the well, he noticed his horse was growing restless, trying to stay away from the well and backing away with a look of fear in its eyes. This caught Samuel's attention. As he approached the well, he noticed faded traces of blood, nearly invisible under years of accumulated dust and grime. Old blood stains were mixed with the soil on the walls of the well. Samuel wondered what these marks meant, but his mind was not clear. At that moment, a hum carried by the wind sent a chill down Samuel's spine. The sound seemed like the moans of spirits trapped in the well for years. Samuel reached for his pistol, expecting something to appear at any moment. But there was no one around, only the deep hum of the wind and silence. Samuel did not know what was hidden behind the cursed silence of the town, but something had brought him here. His instincts told him he needed to stay and uncover something. But what would following this dark past lead him to? Without knowing, he began to move deeper into the town. As Samuel advanced through the dusty and deserted streets, the weight of the surrounding silence grew heavier with each step. The unease inside him was giving way to a dark apprehension. Every corner, every crumbling building seemed to carry the traces of a horrifying event that had once occurred here. His steps echoed with the rustling of leaves blown by the wind, and even this sound felt too much for him. In the middle of the town, near the well he had examined earlier, a building caught his attention. It seemed more solid than the others, as if it had been less affected by the events that had taken place. However, the old inscription on its door had faded with time and was unreadable. Samuel carefully stepped inside. The wooden floors creaked slightly under his weight. The interior of the building was dim, with the only light source being the weak sunlight filtering through a dust-covered small window. As he moved through the room, old portraits hung on the walls and dusty items on the shelves caught his eye. It was clear that this place had once belonged to a family, but now it was overshadowed by the cold shadow of death. On a table, he saw a partially open book. When Samuel picked up the book, he noticed an old map drawn on one of the pages. In the center of the map was a red ink mark, the location of the well. Below the map were handwritten words: "When blood taints gold, the curse becomes eternal." As Samuel read these words, the air in the room suddenly changed. He felt the room grow colder. His breath formed white clouds in the air. He set the book back on the table and stepped back. Solving the secrets of this cursed town was leading him down a much more dangerous path than he had anticipated. But he continued with determination. As he left the room and headed outside, the wind had intensified, and the sky had begun to darken. Squinting, he looked around and saw dark shapes approaching from the other end of the town. The approaching figures initially appeared as indistinct shadows, but when Samuel reached a clearer view, he realized they were not human. The beings, with faces blurred as if made of smoke and shadows, moved silently towards him. It was not hard to understand that these beings were the cursed spirits of the town's deceased residents. They carried weapons, but these weapons seemed to have become an extension of their bodies. Samuel reached for his pistol, but hesitated to draw it. These beings were not physical enemies. He did not even know if there was a way to deal with them. Yet his instincts told him there was no point in fleeing. As the dark figures approached Samuel, the air began to fill with a cold scent of death. Each one whispered old pains trying to reach Samuel's soul. As the darkness closed around him, one of the figures attacked him with spiritual fury. Samuel dropped the map and staggered backward, but his foot caught, and he fell to the edge of the well. Peering into the well, he saw gold glittering in the darkness. But these were the cursed gold of the town. The dark force rising from the depths of the well tried to pull Samuel in. In this cursed place, the sins of the past and the blood-stained gold were destroying everything. Samuel, captivated by the gold's gleam, made a final effort to pull himself away from the well. As the dark figures tried to seize Samuel, the darkness over the town grew even denser. The wind began to blow like a storm filled with cries of death. Samuel tried to distance himself from the well and reach his horse, but the cursed spirits did not leave him alone. Samuel drew his pistol and fired, but the bullets had no effect on the beings. The darkness slowly drew Samuel in. As he tried to reach his horse, one of the spirits gripped his throat with its fingers and threw him to the ground. As his vision began to darken, the only sound echoing in his ears was the ominous whisper of the cursed gold from the depths of the well. He fought desperately to save himself, but this cursed place had no intention of letting him go. Samuel struggled with all his might to escape the suffocating pressure of the cursed spirits, trying to move away from the well. Yet with every step, his feet felt as though they were being pulled back by an invisible force, the cold hands of dark figures enveloping his body. Escaping this hell was nearly impossible, but Samuel's will remained unbroken. As the ominous whispers of the gold continued to echo in his mind, he paused for a moment, contemplating the source of this curse. For a brief moment, time seemed to stop. Samuel, at the edge of the well, once again saw the glimmer of the gold emerging from the darkness. These were not ordinary treasures. Each piece bore ancient symbols that appeared to be written in blood. Samuel realized that these gold pieces brought not only wealth, but also death and curse. The cold and dark force from the depths of the well was somehow connected to these gold pieces. Suddenly, one of the dark figures approached Samuel and struck him in the throat. As Samuel fell to the ground, he saw the glimmer of the gold even more clearly. The gold captivated his entire attention. He could not resist the urge to take and hold one. When he reached out and his fingers touched the cold, hard metal, a chill spread through his body. At that moment, the power and curse of the gold seeped into his mind. As his vision blurred, terrifying images began to emerge in his mind. He saw the massacre that had occurred in this town centuries ago. Foreign men attacking the town, killing women and children in the well. The bloodstains on the gold were mixing with the gold in Samuel's hand. The source of the curse was these blood-soaked gold pieces. These gold pieces had spread the curse throughout every corner of the town, perpetuating it endlessly. The gold shining from the depths of the well grew stronger with the ominous whispers echoing in Samuel's mind. Samuel struggled to let go of the gold in his hand, but his fingers felt as if they were glued to it. With each touch, the gold drew his soul further in, making him a part of the curse. The dark figures began to swirl around him, the spirits chasing the cursed gold but never able to obtain it. As Samuel struggled to release the gold, he felt trapped between the ghosts of the past and the curse of the gold. Finally, gathering all his strength, Samuel hurled the gold he held to the ground. When the gold met the earth, a scream rose from the depths of the well. At that moment, Samuel understood how this curse could be stopped. The gold had a spell powerful enough to free the town's spirit. However, this spell could only be broken by bringing them all back. He realized that he could not escape without pursuing the other gold pieces glowing in the depths of the well. But finding the strength to do so seemed impossible. As the dark spirits descended upon him, Samuel understood the true power of the curse. These gold pieces were not just physical wealth. Each was a memory of the brutality and bloodshed that had occurred in the town, and Samuel struggled to resist the allure of this cursed treasure. In one final attempt, Samuel tried to move away from the well, yet with every step, the dark figures tried to pull him back, the power of the cursed gold calling him. Samuel felt he could no longer escape being a part of this curse. At that moment, he saw a light appear at the entrance of the town. This light revived Samuel's hopes. He ran towards the light, despite the efforts of the wind and dark figures to hinder him. The light was bright and hopeful, as if it might rescue him from this curse. Samuel gathered all his strength to reach the light, But just as he was about to approach it, the light suddenly went out, and the town plunged back into darkness. Samuel was once again alone in the darkness. The curse of the gold did not release him. His only escape now was to end this curse, but whether he would find the courage to do so was uncertain. The dark figures surrounded Samuel once more, and this time there was no escape. The only option was to break the curse of the gold and end this nightmare. But could this come at the cost of Samuel's life? Samuel remained in this cursed town, facing the shadows of the past and the cursed gold. The story would now focus on his struggle to break free from this curse. In this dark and arduous battle, would Samuel survive? Or would the town's cursed gold imprison him in endless darkness? As Samuel fled through the dark streets of the town, breathless and determined, a single thought echoed in his mind. He had to end this curse. With every step, the ominous whispers rising from the depths of the well followed him. The spirits had completely surrounded Samuel. Dark figures swirled around him, trying to make his soul a part of the curse. Samuel felt the oppressive atmosphere slowly breaking him down, but he was not ready to give up. At the end of his path, he saw the abandoned church, one of the oldest structures in the town. Its ancient stone walls were covered in moss, and the roof was on the brink of collapsing. However, Samuel instinctively felt that this church was the center of the curse. The spirits tried to prevent him from entering. Dark figures piled up at the church door, pushing him back. But Samuel, gathering all his strength, forced the door open and managed to get inside. The inside of the church was even more terrifying than the outside. Dust-covered old pews, faded icons hanging on the walls, and metal candlesticks with melted wax dripped from them. The silence in the room made the whispers Samuel heard even more pronounced. The curse of the gold was felt even within this sacred place. In the middle of the church stood a stone altar. Samuel believed that this altar was the source of all the town's evil. An old chest on the altar caught his attention. The symbols carved into the chest's lid told the history of the town's curse. When Samuel, with trembling hands, opened the chest, he saw a few gold pieces glowing inside. These pieces of gold were remnants of the town's past tragedy. Each one was cursed with the blood of innocent people. Samuel knew that these gold pieces had to be destroyed in some way, but he could not predict the effects of destroying them. Dark spirits watched him. Any mistake could lead to his complete possession. However, Samuel realized there was no other way. He grasped the last piece of gold tightly and, using all his strength with an old hammer lying on the altar, began to crush the gold. With each strike, the sound echoed through the church, and as he crushed the gold, the dark figures surrounding Samuel began to weaken. The whispers lessened, and the dark forces withdrew. But when he delivered the final blow, everything inside the church suddenly burst into flames. As the walls and ceiling of the church rapidly collapsed, Samuel looked around in confusion. The spirits swirled around him in anger, seeking to take his life. But at that moment, a bright light emerged from beneath the altar, filling the entire church. This light destroyed the dark spirits one by one and enveloped Samuel in a protected area. The curse of the gold was ending, and the dark forces over the town were dissipating. Samuel realized that the source of the curse was indeed the gold, and that by destroying it, he had freed the town. As the walls of the church completely crumbled, Samuel found himself amidst the ruins. The dark figures had vanished, and the town was enveloped in silence. The curse of the gold had ended, and the town had returned to peace. Samuel took a deep breath, exited the ruins, and walked toward the daylight. The town's streets were now empty. No spirits remained. Samuel knew that the curse had ended, and the town had finally found peace. However, just as he reached the town's boundary, he heard a whisper from behind him. Turning around, he saw a piece of gold lying at the well's edge. This piece represented the source of the entire curse. Samuel reached out and picked up the gold. But this time, the gold was not a curse, just a simple metal piece. Samuel held it tightly in his hand and decided to eliminate it forever. He set out to bury the gold in the depths of the town, in a place where no one could find it. Samuel's fate seemed to be intertwined with this curse, but now he had freed himself from the curse of the gold and saved the town. The townspeople might never forget this horrifying past, but at least they could now sleep in peace. Thus, the town's curse ended, and Samuel set out in search of eternal peace. But the town he left behind would continue to be filled with the terrifying traces of the past.